Welcome. We are going to keep going with sutras. And today our sutra is Yoga 2.5. So the English translation from Swami Satchidananda says, ignorance is regarding the impermanent as permanent, the impure as pure, the painful as pleasant, and the non-self as the self. Ignorance is regarding the impermanent as permanent, the impure as pure, the painful as pleasant, and the non-self as the self. So to kind of summarize that, he's basically telling us that we're confused. We don't really see how things are. We see them the way we are. Which isn't bad. It's just, if we're really in it, we don't get it, that we're seeing things through our own lens, and that it might not actually be how things truly are. There's a practice in yoga that's called neti neti, which means not that, not that. And it's a little bit of a naming process. So when something comes to mind and it seems like it's real, there's a pause, like, is that true? Am I that? Is it this way? And the response is no, not that. So we might get to that place in our practice today, but I do want to speak a little bit to what he says in this chapter, because there's a couple of things that when I have been reading this over the years, I've underlined, because when I first read them, I was like, oh, wow, okay. Like there's something here that I need to pay attention to. And the first thing that I want to read from is on page 87. If you don't have the book, it's not a problem. But if you are reading along, that's where I am. He says, what is the self and what is non-self? The self is eternal, never changing. It is always everywhere at the very basic substance. All things are actually nothing but the self, but in our ignorance, we see them as different. Thus, we take the changing appearances to be the unchanging truth. So we mistake what we see that's always changing as actually being real. When something changes, it can't be the self. For example, our own bodies are changing every second. Yet we take the body to be the self. And speaking in terms of it, we say, I am hungry, or I am lame, I am black, or I am white. These are all just conditions and qualities of the body. We touch the truth when we say, my body aches, implying that the body belongs to us and that therefore we are not that. So science tells us that, just like at a basic level, our cells turn over every 7 years. Like we're not even the same person we were 7 years ago physically, much less experientially. And when we think about what the source of our suffering is, a lot of times it's this ignorance that says that we are what we're feeling right now, or what we're experiencing right now. And what the practice of yoga is inviting us into is to look a little bit deeper and see, like, what's actually here. So I was thinking this morning about when I went to my 10-day silent meditation retreat, and I've told this story before as a teacher. There was this moment where I thought I figured out the train schedule, which helped me predict the lunch schedule. Right, the train came by, there was like a few minutes, and then it was time for lunch, and they'd ring the lunch bell, and I could finally get up from sitting and go to lunch. And about the 6th or 7th day of this 10-day experience, I heard the train come by. I was like, cool, lunch is coming. I've been sitting here for a while, I'm kind of stiff, I'm ready. And then the lunch bell didn't ring. And there was so much cognitive suffering happening. Like, the physical experience wasn't different. I'd been sitting there, I was still sitting there, but the experience of sitting changed for me so drastically. The longer we sat, the more I started to believe that maybe the person who rang the bell was sick, or maybe they were playing mind tricks with us, and they were like, oh, today we're going to make them sit a little extra and see how that affects them. Like, we're going to do this on purpose to play with them. Like, just all the stuff we make up in our head when we think we know what's going on. Anyways, so our mind does that. It makes shit up. It's just like in there playing games with us all the time. And it can be, really inconsequential, but it can also be very consequential. It can affect our relationships. It can affect our experience of the world. And so it can even create separation between us and other people, our version of reality. He says something also interesting at the end of this description. He talks about the man who thought he saw a snake in the corner of the room. So it's twilight. He walks into his room and he sees the shape and he goes into a panic. Oh, there's a snake in here. Makes a fuss. A bunch of people come running. And ultimately they realize, no, it's just a coiled rope in the corner, right? The mind projects onto things, thinks it knows what's going on, and then there's another whole drama that goes with it. What he says is, when we're in darkness, total ignorance, we won't even make up the story. So if it's completely dark, we don't see the rope, we don't go into story. If we're in light and we understand the nature of reality, we'll see clearly from the beginning that, oh yeah, that's a rope in the corner, that's not a snake. It won't even come into our mind that it could be a snake. And he says what's dangerous is the twilight time, where you can kind of see a little bit, but not clearly. To be mindful when you're in that place where you think you know, that you may not actually know. And what he says specifically is, if you are completely ignorant, groping in darkness, you will not even see the rope, the pains of this world, and want to understand the truth. So yoga is neither for a person who has gained the light, nor for the totally ignorant person who doesn't bother to know anything. Yoga is for the person in between. It is to dispel this ignorance that yoga is practiced. So whether the yoga is showing up on our mat and seeing how things are, a simple example is some days I come in and I'm like, ugh, I'm tired, I can't do this today. And then 10 minutes in, I'm like, oh yeah, actually, no big deal. I can actually do this today. Sometimes it's a mental experience. And so when we sit, or when we get on our mat, or when we read these texts, we're invited to get curious about what's the nature of reality, like what's real versus what's our projection. So I'm going to invite us into a meditation this morning where I'm going to offer you just some questions as we go. We'll sit for a minute, we'll get quiet, we'll get grounded, and then there'll be a little bit of inquiry work that I'll guide you through. Any questions before we begin? Okay. Let's begin by taking your seat for practice. Once you're situated, if it's okay to close your eyes, do that, or lower your gaze. Something to start to limit the outside distraction and come into an internal space. Sense into your foundation, the physical experience of your seat, your feet. Notice your hands. Notice your posture, which is a little less concrete. It's a way of being. Notice your way of being. And notice your breath. Just the in-breath, the out-breath. Start to come into a mindful awareness of what's here. Ground into the physical experience of being supported and breathing. The question is, how are you? The answer typically shows up as I am, fill in the blank. I am tired. I am hot. The invitation is to turn that into I feel. I feel tired. I feel good. I feel hungry. How are you? It's a question we get asked all the time. How are you? if we have an awareness that we aren't tired, we feel tired right now. We feel tired. Who are you? Not that. Who are you? Not that. If you're going down a philosophical rabbit hole, that's not it either. Who are you? Notice your breath. Ground into your physical body. How are you? How do you feel? Take a bigger breath. We'll do that again. Nice, big, clearing breath. When you're ready, open your eyes. The practice of yoga is, for me, learning to distinguish what's real and not real. I wrote an email to somebody yesterday. I'm just working through some things and relationships, and in the email I said, I'm difficult to work with. It's just owning some things that are happening between me and this person. And as I thought about it in my practice this morning, I was like, that's just not who I am. That's what's happening right now. Right? I can be difficult, but that's not who I am. I can be difficult, but I'm not difficult. But all the things happening outside of me can make me behave in ways that I think are who I am, but that's not really who I am. And my greatest hope when I'm interacting with people is that we can see that about each other. This person I'm dealing with, I think, is difficult too right now. But that's not who she is. I'm just experiencing her that way because I'm having my own experience of my own difficulty. But we're both light beings, just trying to figure it out. And most of the time, if I can get back to that, I'm okay. Right? But there's the swirling in the ignorance of like, this person is this way, or this situation is this way. And it's like, no, not really. That's all just me putting all this stuff that I'm feeling and dealing with onto this thing. What's actually happening? How can we get out of our own way and really see and be in this time and place in a way that's connected and not separate? Any thoughts or comments? Insights? This is a good one for insights. Questions, Marcia?
Yeah, this one is one that you just can't jump into for me. So a couple of things. I mean, in the purest form, I'm just energy, right? So it's like to get from all the stuff and then get to the purest form of just that's all I am is like it's aha, I'm not shaking, it just the reality, but like I'm losing something in that whole spectrum to get there. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Oh, you're making sense.
It's like, oh, right, I'm not tired. This is how I feel. Well, that makes sense. And then your questions were, to me, just profound to think about some of it, how we just let everything just, all this stuff gets there. And yeah, it just, that's the reality. All our perceptions, everything, all, everything is a reflection. Right? I'm going to be quiet.
Oh, thank you. It's there's a so what in there. And it's Mary.
I identify with Marcia. It's sort of a big concept to grasp. So I've decided that I'm spend my time mostly like in the twilight, and I have to stay in the light to realize that, okay, it's not about me. This person may be having a bad day, or this, and try and look at things from different angles, sort of. And also sometimes I have a bad day. It's not like you realize that, okay, stop it, step back, relax. It's all going to be okay.
Yeah, you're awake in the twilight.
I'm on the right side of the grass today. That's really all that matters.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it would be nice to be in the darkness, right? Just bouncing off things, not even realizing. But too late, you guys. You're here. Curious. My one offering as a takeaway on all of this work is my experience is there's moments of insight and there's not a permanent state that I'm seeking in this lifetime, right? It's not like I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure it out and then I'm going to always be able to be in that space. It's just an ability to be in the world and see what's going on and distinguish what I can't see sooner than later and maybe create less harm for myself and for others. Right? If I can see I'm being reactive before I actually take the action that the reaction is asking of me, then maybe there's a little bit more peace in the world than if I'm just constantly reacting without any awareness of, well, maybe that's just me. I don't know. Thank you guys. Don't get too wrapped around the axle. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.